Over the years, I've developed a certain kind of character. Now I've written scripts for other people and done adaptations, but there was a kind of a character that began in Taxi Driver of a kind of a loner in a room, just sitting there, waiting for something to happen. And he's wearing a mask, and the mask is his profession. In that case, a taxi driver, or in the case of light sleeper, a drug dealer. First reformed, a minister, and in this case, it's a poker player. And what is waiting to happen is he's living a kind of a limbo life, not waiting to make connection, because he probably doesn't have the courage to kill himself, but he doesn't have the courage to start a real life. So he just waits. And then something happens. And poker is a good metaphor for that, because poker is just a game of waiting, waiting and waiting. He has come out of jail, has been in jail at Leavenworth for 8 years, because he was one of the primary torturers at Abu Ghraib. And in jail, he learned to play poker. And now that's all he does. He lives a gambling, and at that level is a non-life. It's just counting numbers. It's just pulling the slot machine, watching the numbers roll on. You know, they do all those commercials where they try to convince you that it's exciting. It's not exciting. It's a mind-dulling drug. But then he meets a kid who wants to revenge his father. And he thinks that maybe if I can keep this kid, Ty Sheridan, the main character is Oscar Isaac, if I can keep Ty from his revenge mission, maybe I can start my life again. Here's a guy who's been fully punished by the government, and he feels he hasn't been punished enough. So now he's self-punishing himself. And I found that a very interesting metaphor for these times, where so many people refuse to take responsibility for the things they've done that have hurt people. And so that's sort of where the idea came. And you get these two poles of this fellow, and usually it is a man, and this problem, this crisis, and they're like two wires, and you just tickle them until the spark starts to come across. Every film at some point, you find yourself saying to an actor, the actor is saying, you're discussing a line, and you say, I don't know why he says that, but I know he opens his mouth and those words come out. But I don't know why he says that. And that's sort of something I learned from doing a film with Harold Pinter. Said, people don't necessarily know why they say what they say, which of course is the opposite of melodrama, where it's all set up, question, answer, on to the next thing. And so typically I'll do a scene where a question is posed and it's not answered. And then later in that scene, or maybe in another scene, out of nowhere, he answers the question. And so that's one of the ways you keep the viewer off guard. He's unformed. Uh, he is being eaten alive by anger, and he can't control. And he's a little nothing of a kid. He's a slip of a kid. And he wants to do this revenge against the Willem Dafoe character. And he wants to get a partner who's much more muscular and adult than he is. So, and then the partner, Oscar, they agree to do this together because Oscar says, if I can talk him out of it, I can forgive myself too. And Ty says, I'm going to talk him into it because I know he really wants to do it. And when they first meet, they're in a casino late at night. And he says, when I first saw you, and I recognized you, and I recognized you instantly, I said to myself, there's a man who wants a piece of what I'm going to do. They had this program called SERE, S-E-R-E, which they developed in Nicaragua, where they were training American prisoners to withstand torture. And he went through this whole program. And he was one of the instructors. And then 9/11 happened, and they started getting these prisoners themselves. And they decided to counter-program. Rumsfeld did. Let's take the lessons we learned from trying to protect our soldiers and use them against their soldiers. And that's how it all started. I showed him the cut of the film, and we had a conversation about it. Because I had that weird situation where I had shot 3/4 of the film, and I had 4 or 5 main scenes. So I could show the film to people, including Marty, and say, I have these scenes to shoot now. I can rewrite them all. Is there something I'm missing? I wouldn't, you don't have time to really reshoot in a independent production. But now I had forced time. I had 2-3 months to sit there and say, could this be a different scene? Could there something else be going on in this thing? And so that's the kind of questions I was asking him. It's all forms of redemption. And by that, I mean, I come from a Christian background. The idea of doing something that gives value to your life, particularly if you've done something in the past that has made you ashamed. I did a film called Light Sleeper, and Michael Bean, who had a Christian group called The Call, did a series of a song cycle based on a series of Bob Dylan songs. And I liked the way that worked. It gave the character a third voice. He had his dialogue voice, he had his journal voice, and then he had his singing voice, which is a different person's voice. And I thought, I'd like to go back to that and try it again. Well, Michael was dead, but his son, Robert, had a group called the Black Rebel Motorcycle Club, which I liked. And so I approached Robert, and only this time I said, it's not a full song cycle. It begins, imagine a beast in a tar pit, and you can hear the beast. He's groaning under there, and louder and softer. And occasionally it starts to sound like a word. And all of a sudden the beast starts to emerge. Now some of those sounds are collecting themselves into phrases. And then all of a sudden there is a song there.
Hey, don't close out, stay with me because I have a really cool movie fact. Did you know the Hollywood star who played the most leading roles in feature films was John Wayne, who appeared in 153 movies? Now, you don't always have to have the leading roles to make records, as a star with the most screen credits is John Carradine, who had been in over 230 movies. Now, do you like my shirt? Get one for yourself in a link in the description.